into Back Home Media.
The Derek Relaford Show on Bedroom Radio.
And we're back. Hey. Sarah, I'm sending you the Twitch link, the Twitter link.
I already got it. Boom. Done. Hit the button.
Oh man, we have got viewers like crazy. Welcome to the show.
Oh.
Loading in here. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some things tonight. Hanging out here with Sarah from Easy Out, Kent from Growing Garden City, and Matt from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the podcast. We got to think of a good name for that. Matt's going to do a podcast. We literally just invented it, where you tell him a story about your life, and then he tells you how it's just like this episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia he saw one time. It's a pretty good podcast.
It is.
I think it's going to go places.
It will.
Solid.
I think we'll end up in an episode of It's Always Sunny one of these days.
Yeah.
It might.
I would like to see that.
Would you start drinking again for the method acting if you could be a Patty's patron?
Well, assuming
you're going to want to be sauced up if you're a Patty's patron.
if I'm needed to be, even so, they don't drink on set like whatsoever. But in the theory that I would have to be on set drinking before the end of this year, then I would break my rule. Actually, I have a buddy who's having a kid, and like obviously pre-COVID, when he told me he was having a kid, I was like, yeah, I'll drink a beer with you when
Hi,
you're
Tracy.
dad.
Tabor's my cousin, man. He's doing good things. Yeah, hell of a podcast that we're going to be putting out here at Back Home Media, so check it out. Anyway, we brought you here because we want to talk about Back Home Media. We have a ton of stuff going on here, and I don't think anybody really knows. So I decided we're going to go through one of the, I think we have 10 podcasts active right now that are putting out episodes, and we'll go through them one at a time and talk to a little bit about those shows. And first one's first. Let me see. Let's go here. There we go. We're going to talk about Ether podcast for a second.
You can't really see that, but
no, I know. But I did it for this. See, the one's all messed up. Oh, I'm on the wrong one.
No, you're not. That's his Aether.
Well, why does it say? Oh, I'm on the banners for. No,
you're in their brand.
Okay, here we go. Ether is a 4-piece energy hard rock group out of Dodge City, Kansas. They're on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, so it's basically a rock band from Dodge City, Kansas. They're a little rough around the edges, if you know what I mean. They like to play that rock and roll. You know what I'm talking about? And they're probably the hardest working band in Western Kansas. They have a video out. Like not a lot of a lot of us bands in Western Kansas didn't do a ton of videos and stuff and like great recordings and stuff. Like Western Kansas pre 2007 wasn't known for quality recordings of bands. You have a lot of bands on crappy sounding recordings, which are still awesome to listen to. I like listening to all those old stuff, but Ether's like doing it right, and they do a podcast every other Wednesday, and it's a good show. They interview like musicians and other band members from other bands that they play with on the road and stuff. So it's a pretty good show. You should check it out. And they're all over the place too. Back Home Media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can think of. And that's one thing. We're pretty much on any podcast platform there is. Sarah, what are some of the ones you said? Because you've been looking into it. What are some of the ones that we're not on?
Podbean, I believe. I think we said Stitcher. What's the other one?
See,
so
now,
stay away from those. Those are bad.
Those are stupid. No, so honestly, like we will get our show on those on those platforms. We just haven't done it yet. But basically, what we're trying to do is make it to where you can listen to any of these shows anytime you want, on demand, on the podcast apps. I know it's fun to watch them live, or a lot of people. What up, Doobie? I know a lot of people like to watch shows. They'll do hashtag replay and they'll watch the whole show later on. But if you just want to listen to it, where you can still continue to put it on you can put it on the background. You just, you can go to backhomemedia.com. We have players on there. You just go to any podcast app, look up Ether Podcast, look up any of these podcasts, and get your fix. People are listening. Sarah, so when I moved to Kansas in 2010, I had been doing what was basically a podcast for a long time. Yeah, here you go. I was doing basically a podcast, but I was doing live radio, which is what we're doing now, and which is we've been talking about this for 3 weeks. And apparently I've had the same conversation with Sarah 3 times now. I do smoke marijuana. But we kind of spoiled the party by becoming, me and Sarah never had to go through that awkward phase. Kent either, of being a podcaster and learning how to have a voice, when it's just you and your friends listening, and then you can go back and edit it and you can make sure everything's perfect and you can put it out into the world, and then the people can listen to it at face value. And then somebody says you should go live and you have a panic attack and you're like, I could never do that. We never had that awkward moment. We were going live from the get-go. So now, a lot of people don't know we have podcasts, but if you want to listen to these shows and you don't want to just sit on Facebook or Twitch or these places, just get the podcast. But Sarah, how many podcasts did you listen to before you started messing around with what used to be Back Home Media, Bedroom Radio back in the day? Because I don't think a lot of people in the Garden City area really listen to a lot of podcasts.
I didn't listen to any. I didn't pick up listening to podcasts. Well, yeah, I guess it would have been. No, I really didn't listen to any. I didn't get into podcast stuff until I found Section 10 and Starting 9, at Barstool. Barstool Sports were the first podcast I really started listening to. Jared Carabas, and for a long time, that was the only podcast I would listen to because it was the only thing that was entertaining enough for me to sit there and listen to. I'm a big music person though, so I prefer if I've got the free time, I want to listen to music instead of listening to people talk. And I mean, here lately, I've added 5 or 6 more that I listen to pretty regularly. But it's only been the last 3 years, I guess, that I've really actually listened to podcasts.
Well, you're next up on the list. So let me ask you this. You and me have grown up together. We've known each other since we were little shitheads. Did you ever see yourself doing what didn't you say in high school? They told you should do talk radio or some shit like that.
No, when we had our junior year, you had to pick your career field you wanted to be in, and we did that work study thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to do radio, and the only radio around the area was Chip Marks, who was doing the Epic Touch stuff. Remember Epic Touch used to have the radio station?
Yeah.
That was the only thing that was there, and they wouldn't let me go work with him. They made me go file papers at Redman for however long that was.
Child labor.
Yeah. They wouldn't let me go do radio stuff. So
yeah. I think I said I took the aptitude test or whatever it's called, and they were like, well, this isn't a bad thing, but turns out you just like a lot of stuff. So we found the perfect job for you, and it was just hanging out with these 2 dudes at an auto body shop for a week. And it was cool because after the first day, they were kind of minding their P's and Q's until they realized I was a piece of shit, and they were like, oh, we're just gonna be ourselves, dude. We're gonna talk about pussy and beer and we're gonna. So they were just themselves. But after that first day, every day they'd get all their work done for the day, and there'd still be 3 or 4 hours to kill, and they'd be pull it in, and I would pull my hunk of shit car in there, and these 2 guys that were auto body mechanics would just sit there for fun, making my car cool, dude. My back windshield was when I would drive over 70, it wasn't sealed, so it would me and Luke Eastet were driving, and my back windshield's sucking out, the suction's trying to pull it out. So me and Luke Estep duct taped my back window down. We're like duct taped the whole thing down. We're trying to get to Boise City. We're like, we just got to get to Boise City, then we're fine. So they took my back windshield out and like cleaned it up, put it in there. They had my car cleaned up, man, after that week, man. That was my aptitude test. And I never took a job in that field, but Kent, what was your did you guys do that? And you guys probably had a way better program than we did, because Elkhart's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to work at the Dairy Cream or file paperwork at Red Man? Those are the two jobs here.
You're muted.
Yeah, we always had career fairs. And
Did you have to like do a work study thing where like during school hours you went and worked somewhere?
No, not necessarily. When we were seniors, they introduced the Buff Project, and so we got time away from school to do that. But on whatever we picked, and mine was cool. I did sound engineering, so I just went and hung out with Rick Ramirez and Steve Jackson down at Briar Hill, and did a bunch of
pussy and
yeah, did all kinds of crazy things. Became a Democrat. I'm kidding.
I mean, that was a pretty. That's got to be a pretty dope situation. Sarah said the other night, "Are we the 40-year-olds saying cool words?" That's got to be cool. Like being a 17, 18-year-old kid going to, because I remember when I was a kid, when I was like 17, 18, basically when I was poor, and I'm still poor. The magic kind of wore off, but I mean, there was just something about walking into a music store, and turning the amp up just loud enough so you knew everybody could hear it, and then like showing off your licks, and you think in your head you're like, everybody's paying attention, like I can't mess up, and then you go in there as a 37-year-old, and it just sounds like fucking 16 out of tune versions of Stairway to Heaven. You're like, oh, that was never cool. I was an annoying bastard at that music store, sitting there playing "Come As You Are" for 13 minutes straight. Like, is anybody looking at? I'm totally ripping this out. Like,
I always went into Briar Hill when we would go to Liberal, and I played the piano instead. I felt like it was less obnoxious.
That
was loud.
Briar Hill's a hell of a music store back in the day. I mean, it pretty much, if it wasn't for Briar Hill, there wouldn't have been a Western Kansas music scene.
No.
Not true. Foster's Music drove that first.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I never knew there was a Foster's Music. Regale me with this. What was it about?
Well, Foster's Music was around for a really long time. It was on Kansas Avenue. Right at 3rd and Kansas, it was the quilted blanket or something when you lived here last, or the Harvest Pantry. It's like a Nature Foods. Yeah, it was in there. Foster's Music. I mean, just about anybody in this town pre 1993, 95, any musical instrument that you had came from Foster's Music.
Okay. I didn't move there until 93. Because I grew up in Lakin. That makes sense. Because I've never even heard of Foster's, but I didn't go to Briar and Hale until I was
like... Yeah, they didn't open up until right there at the end of Foster's. And
well, like us Elkhart kids, though, like Liberal was like popping back then. See, here we go. More of the old people saying cool words thing. Liberal was like the big place back then. So we all went there. So it was Briar and Hale for if you lived, more than.
But they were everywhere. They were in Liberal. They were in Dodge. You know what I mean? Like,
they're still around, right?
We'd make the circuit.
Is it still in Liberal?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Dodge.
It's different than it was before, but it's still there.
Well, speaking of Garden City, we have a show called Growing Garden City. That's a hell of a show, and we have a lot of fun over there. We had a show tonight. Kent, let's talk about Garden City and its growing. Okay, so I moved there in 2001, and I'll give you my synopsis of Garden City. So the first I ever heard of Garden City, which is crazy, it's not that far from Elkhart, but I didn't know the place existed pretty much throughout my whole life until I moved there. Never thought about it. But I went to Holcomb to my cousin's house, the Bird Boys. You might even know them. Justin Bird, Jordan Bird, the Bird Boys. They're my cousins. And they were like being straight up honest. My uncle told us, because we were going to go to Garden City to go shopping at Sears. And they told my dad he had to take his Raiders hat off. And he was like, why? He's like, Garden City is like a pretty bad gang town. And I believed him. And I've heard people say that back then, you know, like Garden City used to have some issues with that. And now they're all like coaching softball together and shit, you know, like everybody gets along now. But back then, things were the tensions were high, you know, especially at like there was race wars going on back in Garden City. And then so we went to Garden City and I didn't see any gang members, but then a tornado hit and we got stuck in the women's panty department for like 30 minutes while a tornado was somewhere. It wasn't anywhere near us, I'm sure, but Garden City was scary to me. I left that day and I was like, fuck this town. But I love Garden City. Like I moved there when I was 18 years old, and I really felt like that's where I started finding myself, I guess.
Yeah. I was born in Hayes, and
really, I thought you were GC all through.
No, I was born in Hayes, but my grandparents had a farm in between here in Scott City, which is 30 miles north of Garden. So I grew up there. So for me, growing up, going to Garden City was always like going to the big city. You know what I mean? Because Scott City was small and whatever else. So going to Garden was like cool stuff. I
thought Garden was a big city when I was 18 and played my first show at the Pond, dude. I was like, this is a huge town.
Yeah. You know, it's always had that attitude. You know, Garden City's always had that big city attitude. We moved here, though. I was in first grade, so I was like 6, 7 years old, whatever that age is. And I've been here ever since. And I've seen it like really change, you know. So 90 is when we moved here, but I, like I said, my grandparents are up north, so I was up there all the time. So I've been coming here my whole life. You know, we come to K-Bob's. I don't know if you guys remember having K-Bob's here.
Was it Liberal or Guyman that had a K-Bob's?
I think Guyman.
We went to a K-Bob's. We had to go to a funeral in New Mexico a year and a half ago. And we went to a K-Bob's and Doc was jumping up and down on the booth and the booth like imploded and he fell inside of it.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh my God. And he freaked out, dude. And the waitress comes over and she's like, damn it. And I was like, what? She's like, that booth always does that. I was like, don't fucking say that to me.
Yeah.
So we're like, I think he's okay. Then he starts puking like 10 minutes later. I thought he like did some, because he folded in half when he went in there. So I thought he like did some damage to his guts or something. So I'm like, I'm taking my kid to the hospital. And she was like, and I was like, yeah, you should probably have your district manager call me. I was like, I'm not trying to sue anybody, but I'm not paying for this doctor visit. Now that you told me that booth always kills kids, yeah. I was like, you know, so we went to the doctor and they tested him out and he was fine. I think I don't know why he puked. Maybe he ate too much, but K-Bob's paid the medical bills and they restored their good name, because I've always been a K-Bob's fan. They were really nice about it. They even called back a few months later and made sure we didn't have any additional bills. They took care of us. But wow. If you're at K-Bob's in Raton, New Mexico, watch that first booth, because it's
I've stayed the night
but
there.
That's totally like whoever, like if you train people and you found out a waiter was like, yeah, that totally does that right after a fucking, it's like, no, you dumbass. Like if you wanted to sue them and be an asshole about it.
Oh, I could have walked away with.
She said the sentence that got you the money. Like it's kind of shitty.
I thought of you immediately, Matt. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if Matt was here, we would be on the phone with.
Well, I still wouldn't recommend to sue it, but it's like, hey, listen, you need to learn this fucking lesson now. Because, like, you don't, I mean, I guess the worst case scenario working for K-Bob's, they'll probably just fire her and shit. But still, like, but what if she really liked the job?
Yeah, she was a nice lady, dude. She was upset he was hurt, you know. She was like, oh my, and she was like kicking herself. But yeah, wrong thing to say for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had a car accident, and I said I was sorry, and that's how I know that shit.
We'll stay on the topic of Garden City for a little bit. I was talking about earlier, one of my favorite places to eat. Not really, because I thought the food was great, actually. I'm not going to shit on their food. Now, a lot of times you would order something and you would get something completely different, and you just ate it because whatever. But Lone Star in Garden City, Kansas, before it shut down, the reason I liked it was because not everybody dug it. A lot of people shit on it all the time. So if I was starving and I wanted to get like a steak dinner or like a nice like steakhouse burger or something like that, I would go to there because you could easily get a table that wasn't crowded, and you got in and out, you were done. And I was like, I benefited from people, and I think it really was probably just some bad management and stuff. But I always enjoyed their food. That was actually my favorite place to eat in Garden, besides Tequila's. Tequila's always wins. Well, I'm not.
They came out. It's just they're at the. Well, I mean, obviously, always
Is Tequila's the place with the giant fishbowl?
One where you got hammered, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that place.
it's
That place
okay.
is delicious.
I think it's okay.
Josh,
I think
stop
it's okay for Garden City Mexican food. Like when it first opened up and stuff, it was different. It was good, but they've been challenged.
You probably think El Zarape is better.
And no, but El Zarape is like hometown staple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I don't even care about the quality of the food at that point. The only reason I'd be going to Tequila's is because I want to go drink that giant fishbowl margarita. Like,
yeah.
I'm going there if I want to get drunk.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm not going there to
that's
eat.
a lot of people go there for the margaritas, so we can give them.
I
that.
think they got good food. I mean,
yeah,
now,
they do.
granted,
Don't get me wrong, they do. I love their food. I'm not saying they're a bad
Yeah,
restaurant.
it wasn't bad, but
They're good.
their carry out screwed
And
me over a few times. And I left them a bad review one time because I'm a Karen. And but honestly, that was like one of our go-tos, and like that's one thing that I miss the most about Western Kansas is the Mexican food. Like you really have to cherish the good culture, like, because every, like, people say you want some Mexican food, it's like, sure, well what kind? You want some Mexican food in Kansas, you want some Mexican food in New York City, you want some Mexican food in Phoenix, you want some Mexican food in New Mexico, because that's a whole fucking different story. I don't even know if I like it. I mean, really, Mexican food is really based on where the people cooking it are from.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's all the same ingredients, but it's completely different tastes.
It's
Like El Zarape, I don't dislike El Zarape, but to me, I just like Tequila's more because, like, it was probably because it was more, like Americanized or whatever. Because I like, like the white queso. They use tons of that and stuff. I just really liked that food. It was more exciting to me. But I mean, El Zarape was like a different style of Mexican food, and I preferred the tequila style more. And I know that's not, but again, you can't say traditional Mexican food because it depends. Okay, which city were you in Mexico? What tradition did you use? Because it's different depending on what area you're in.
Well, and it's also like, are you talking about like a chain? Like Ruby Tequila's is a bunch of high school kids in the kitchen, and that is not Mexican food made with love. And you can tell. On the Border is not real Mexican food.
El Zarape, they were Garden City's first Mexican food.
I mean, thank God they're still going,
And so their menu was created because of that simple fact. You know what I mean? Like, this was a new cuisine. Nobody had really had it before, when they opened. And this was way back, and it's been family owned and operated all these years. And it's great that but their menu was developed on the taste of their area, Southwest Kansas, Garden City. You know what I mean? So that's how that menu started. Was
I have love for them all, dude. But if I'm buying stock in a Garden City Mexican restaurant, it's probably going to be.
it's going to be El Zarape.
It'll probably be Tapatio for me because they're open until 5 a.m.
Who?
I
Wait,
need that in
what?
my life.
Tapatio.
That's that place I took you and your sister and Greg, Matt.
Wait, where?
It's in Garden. It's open late as hell. It's like, I don't know. It's like they have like that. That's, you can't find that style of Mexican food unless you really look. In Phoenix, like, I've found it a few places and it's nowhere near as good. But like Tapatio and Mariscos, they're very kind of similar, but just, it's 2:30 in the morning. You just drive over there, go in, say hello to the Mexican people in there that are drunk and still dancing, and get yourself some food, and you just go home and you're just like kill it, and then you have heartburn because it's greasy. It's just delicious. I mean, it's spicy, like, you know, like you take a bite of some of their asada, and it bites you back. You're just like halfway through the burrito, you're like, man, did they put like the entire jalapenos, like the whole box in there? Like, it's fucking hot as shit, man. Like, it's really good. And like, so in Kansas, if you go to Wichita, my buddy took me to a place that's very much like those restaurants, the same style, and it's an all night 24-hour drive through, and it's just like it's like the Subway of Mexican, like that style of Mexican food burritos, and it's fucking so good, dude. So I miss that. Me and Stephanie don't really have an outlet for. We have this one place that's kind of like El Zarape, in my opinion, called Top Shelf, that me and Matt go to when he's over in our neighborhood. That's I don't dislike El Zarape, but like to me it wasn't it wasn't exciting enough. I mean, it was I'm not shitting. I love El Zarape. I went there all the time. Stephanie's family, anytime they're in town, we had to eat El Zarape because they loved it.
Yeah,
Like, people that visit Garden City have to eat there.
Yeah.
We have a comment over here that wants to know how they can call into the show.
Who is it?
It's on Twitch. Lou Sasso. I probably butchered that. Sorry, Lou.
Loose asshole.
No thanks, Luce.
Oh, I know who we're getting in this bitch. We're getting Ben Ready in this hoe.
Uh-oh.
What up?
He's the Black Derek Relaford.
I heard you were the white Ben Ready.
I am the white Ben Ready, and I carry that.
We are working. We do have a comment down here. We are working on getting the call-in line back, but there is not one right now. Sorry.
I'm not gonna lie though, guy from Twitch. Back when we did have a call-in number and we were live on Twitch, kids would just call us and be like, N-word, 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 until I hung up on them. So.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was the original.
And I didn't know that the reason they were doing it is because Twitch would ban your account. So I would just let them say it. I would just let them say it for like 5 minutes. Now Dape would be sweating bullets. He was just texting me, why are you letting this racist shit happen? I was like, because the only thing that's happened is this person looks stupid as fuck, and I got their number. I was like, I know who they are. I was like, this is a racist fucking moron. I'm going to let it's like, if I saw somebody downtown saying a bunch of race shit, I'm not going to stop them. I'm like, no, cool. Fucking everybody pull up a chair. Let's watch this idiot talk for 30 minutes. Let's see what this fucking genius has to say.
Yelling back. I'm that other crazy guy yelling back. Yeah.
I'm not, dude. I'm just like, fuck off, dude. It's like when Westboro Baptist Church used to protest the church I went to. Some people would just sit there and scream at them for hours. And it's like, stop it. I was like, you're yelling at a brick wall, and there's nobody in there. That's a soulless individual. There's nobody in there.
Everybody should handle Westboro Baptist Church like the Foo Fighters do. They go out and sing to them.
Yeah, for real.
Garden
Be nice to them.
with
They'll probably hate
motorcycles.
that. Go out there and bring them food. Be nice to them. They'll be like, no, you're a fag. Be like, that's crazy, man. That's kind of a bum out word. That word bums me out. But here, dude, I made you some food, and I noticed you were a size 32 pants, and I got some of those too.
When they came to Garden City, all they had was exhaust fumes from
They came to
motorcycles.
Garden?
Yeah.
What for?
There was a military death. That was
Damn.
Yeah, they were pretty
popular.
pretty quick to shit on.
Do they even do anything anymore? Like, I haven't seen anything about them.
I think it's just like nobody cares. You know, it's like Westboro's here. Like, oh, cool, we made it, man.
Well, the Fred Phelps died,
And there was rumor that he may have not really atoned, but like said, "Oh shit, my bad." Like right as he died. Probably not. Who knows? But like then the next in line is like really the driving force, like the matriarch. But her daughter, I believe, there was like a really, really interesting back and forth for a while there with her and Kevin Smith on Twitter, where like he was as Kevin Smith as you would expect, but he like just kept the dialogue going. And then later, I mean, I didn't follow it super closely, but it was fascinating enough and it had happened enough that if you imagine, like I watched 5 seasons and there's 8 out. So like I'm paraphrasing the first 5 seasons, and like we could probably find an interview with, I think it's Megan Phelps, who isn't going to carry the torch. So I think that's what's happening, is that they can't continue brainwashing the kids anymore.
Well, they definitely still have their website going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Still
still
around.
active, but like they're going to fizzle out, and like they're going to lose their own members, and they're going to have a hard time keeping the ones that they're raising to replace them.
Matt,
They don't have a growth plan.
tell me about what was your legal, healthy, scholastic outlet in high school, because now we are now in the free zone with Norm, and I want to talk about Sarah was she was a cross country, but did you run, or were you just sort of like the manager? I remember you were a big part of the cross country team.
I ran the first year, and then I got hurt like the second year, so I was just like the manager. But then I did track all 4 years.
Yeah.
I was much more sprint capable than distance. So I was a sprinter, and then I did like discus and stuff like that. Cheerleading for a couple of years, softball. Coach Wilson pissed my dad off, and then no more softball.
Norm?
Not Norm. K.
I was like, damn, Norm. Damn, we got beef and back home.
No, Norm didn't piss my dad off. No, Norm, I loved Norm. But
was he your track coach?
yeah. I was going to pole vault one year, and there weren't enough girls that were doing it to actually have it at any of the meets. But Norm was my pole vaulting coach.
He's a hell of a guy. I love his show. The last two he's done have been solo, and I've listened to both of them twice. Because I had to, because I'm listening for like audio quality and stuff. But I find myself just listening to that guy talk about sports, and I really dig it.
And it's high school sports. It's Acacia
Yeah.
sports, and some in the Oklahoma Panhandle, which is nice to have that focus. We really don't, in this area of the world, don't have that type of focus, where someone's just talking about the programs and the coaches get to come on and talk about what they do. And
Well, dude, that's what I love about back home, is because I'm learning so much about MLB. I would know none of these names but now I'm in the studio, every week, where Sarah and Cape are just running off, with all these names, and like these names that they say are starting to remember them. I remember like the slang you guys use and stuff. And the same thing with Norm's show. Like, I really know what's going on with Kansas athletics right now, and it's really more involved than I ever thought it would be. I mean, it's just a ball in a field, but it's not. Like, there's so much that goes into, like, how the Kansas took away they can't cross state lines to play their games this year. So, like, just the amount of work that goes into rescheduling people's teams so they can actually play games this year, as long, and who knows how long the season is going to go. Like, Matt can sound in on that one. Like, would you have any predictions how coronavirus is going to answer back to all these high schools trying to do football?
I don't. I mean, because I think that the drive is there now. So, like, I don't know that.
I mean, it's going to happen, but do you think there's going to be like some big like case influxes because of it?
I mean, there's going to be stories about it, but I don't know. I wouldn't predict what the effect is going to be, and I don't know that. I mean, like, I don't know that it's going to be. I don't want to be like Chicken Little saying that, like, that they're going to have to cancel the season early or whatever. Now that they decided to do it, then the drive.
I think that the MLB has gotten as far as they have, and so has the other sports. We've kind of proved that, like, once we do have somebody that tests, you get everybody that touched them and kissed them, and you fucking put them in a house and say you're there for 14 days.
Yeah, And I mean, MLB had 0 new positive cases this week. So,
But the one thing MLB has on high school kids is they're getting paid to the point where they kind of have to follow those safety guidelines that are put on place in them contractually. It's not necessarily how do I feel politically about this? It's like I can't be really seen it at a Walmart right now, or I'm gonna fucking probably get fined. I'm gonna get shit on. So high school kids, they don't really have that incentive to stay the hell home and stay away from coronavirus. So I do think that yes, you're gonna get some. There's gonna be some.
Well,
issues.
it's not only that, but they have parents that go to work and they have brothers and sisters that go to other schools. So their contacts are higher just because of being a kid and where they're at. And then they go to school, and they're around 1,000 other kids. Where the NBA and MLB, they're really controlling who they're around. And they're around the same people, So, but you have to look at it as like the colleges and stuff that have opened, and all the cases that have come out through that, and the fraternities, and the lawsuits that have come from there. And I think that's where your baseline qualifier is going to be for a lot of this. And you're going to see programs get shut down. I think school districts are going to shut down pretty quickly. You know what I mean? And move to remote style learning when they need to. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth like that, and people are going to get upset and tired. And I think eventually a decision is going to be made to keep it where it is until. Well,
another thing, Norm,
there's a vaccine.
We learn something. I learn something every week doing these shows, and one thing I've learned while watching Norm show and producing it is that sports are kind of a medication when it comes to mental health for fans, for athletes, for coaches. A lot of people are, like Norm said, there's, you have like choir and band and all these electives that you can do in high school. And for a lot of students, that's literally the only reason they go to school that day.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I hate this. I hate high school, but I get to play drums for an hour later and have fun. So I'm going to go to school today. And they get a goddamn education out of it. And, you have to, yes, coronavirus is scary. And yes, we have to, be careful. But at the same time, it's like you have to look at, risk versus reward. Like, do we really need every high school kid in America that's filled with angst and confusion and hormones having idle time all this next 6 months? Like, hey man, we're not going to do anything. How like normally you go to school all day and then you're like busy till like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, like running and hitting each other. Yeah, just go hang out. Like, what are they going to do? It's going to take like 3 days before they're like, so what's this meth stuff about?
Well,
You know what I'm saying? Like, people need sports. These kids need sports,
Well, and so like I think that sometimes it's like a false thought process between like all or nothing.
Yeah.
But like I think that one thing that is going to be taught to this whole generation of kids is super like a lot more resilience. Like the resilience you hear about the Great Depression generation that learned how to make all kinds of shit. Like the sacks that they put flour in, they started printing patterns on the sack because they found out that people were using the fabric of the sack afterwards to make dresses and shit like that. So like we have like a 100 years later version of that. And like all these kids are going to like, the more time goes on, earlier it was like more of an unknown. Now that we have more understanding of it, we're going to basically all kind of adapt and overcome together. Like it's a challenge that all of us face, and like every, little pockets of society are going to have different challenges, different, things that flare up or whatever. But like after all is said and done kind of thing, like the people will be like more capable of dealing with new shit that comes up. It's a learning experience. It sucks, but
speaking of teen angst, one of our best shows that we do, when I say best, it's like it's one of the most important shows we do, is a show called Kansas Missing and Unsolved. And It's basically where do we? Oh, we don't have a lot of.
No, because we
Anyway, well, I'll just talk about Kansas Missing Unsolved is hosted by Ricky Trebuggy, and then generally somebody from Back Home Media fills in with them. It's pretty much Ricky's show, and he just has somebody help him go through the caseload every week. We talk about every week we cover. We've been doing like 6, but now we're doing like 10 to 12 cases a week. We're going to do less talking and more cases. For some reason, we realized that people would leave when they were just talking to each other. So we were like, oh, we just have to show cases. So really, that's what the show's about. You know, we kind of thought people wanted to, see more of a talk radio format, but it looks like people just kind of want to help find people that are missing. But that's a big thing. I never ran away. Anybody in here ever run away for real? Like where people were looking for you for a couple of days or?
No.
I never had the balls. It's not that I wasn't scared to run away, but I knew that I wasn't going to get far. Like I had no structure behind me. I had no funds. I didn't know anybody. I was like, what am I going to do? Like go to the river and fucking make a fire? And
I'm going to go camp.
Yeah. Like, what am I going to do?
If I ran away and I told you now, you know me, have known me all my life. Like if I told you, yeah, I ran away when I was like 15 because I was like, my life sucks. This place is fucking. You'd laugh your ass off at me. Like I didn't run away, but like I whined. Like I think every kid I did. There was a point where I think I was 17 and I kept like picking the fight so I could get like kind of thrown out a little bit because I had friends with an apartment that I could live in, but I didn't pack my bags and bail.
No, I think a lot of it too, man, is like a lot of these kids that run away, man. Who the hell knows what they're running from, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't understand like the mentality of a real scenario where like that's the motivation.
Where that's like the best option, just to take off with no money.
Yeah.
And really, I don't think these kids. But then again, I don't ever want to make it feel like this show is questioning their decision to run. That's their decision. They made the decision. What our show is about is just saying, okay, you got yourself away from a situation. That's step 1. Step 2 is realizing that the way to solve this isn't going off and, hiding. Like that's, you can't hide from your problems. We have to, deal with. So what the good thing about the show is usually the ratio is about, we cover, like I said, like 6-7 cases a week. And every week when we do on our Located Safe, 3 or 4 of those kids are found, so like the show, and I'm not saying the show is the reason they're being found. But it's an important show. The podcast does really well too. A lot of people listen to it. So yeah, right now we're airing that on, there's one of our cases. Right now we're airing, we just aired the latest episode tonight. So it's on the KMU page, Kansas Missing and Unsolved page, and check it out. They also have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/KMU pod. And Ricky Trebuggy is he's a pretty cool guy. He works a full-time job. He raises 2 daughters with his ex-wife. They have joint custody. And pretty much any time that he's not working or raising his kids, he's in his computer making flyers for these runaway kids that we're talking about that people are trying to find. They got people worried about them and stuff. So if you feel like being a part of that team, I guess I got that link right up here. If you feel like being a part of that team, being a part of being a team member of a true crime podcast, a weekly show where he tries to help locate missing people and solve unsolved crimes, patreon.com/KMU pod. It's a hell of a show. Check it out. So this one we don't have any slides for, but my wife does a show called Parentless Podcast and nobody listens to it. And it's sad. She's getting a little pissed. And I think it's 100% the tone of the show, like Matt was saying, like not a lot of people want to hear a story about somebody's worst day of their life when one of their parents died, But I'm one of those people. I've only listened to like 3 or 4 episodes because like I don't like to cry. Like I just don't. And like there's been times where I've listened to that show and I like kind of get a little tear in my eye. I'm just like, this is lame.
It's like I'm done. No, I think it's a hard show to listen to, but I also think it's very important because even if people aren't really listening to it, it does give these people that space to talk about it.
Yeah. You talked about your dad on there. That was a great episode.
Yeah.
Because it's right. Like, your dad died, and it's not something that, I mean, I'm sure, like, for a while, like, people that you really knew and cared about, you know, they would talk about it with you. But it's like, it's not like big in American culture to really dive deep on subjects that are subjects that are sketchy. Like, if you find out like a buddy of yours had somebody that died, you know, you'll give them condolences and stuff. But like, it's not really tasteful to be like, you know, if you find out one of your buddies, you know, committed suicide or something, you know, like, you want to ask, like, well, how do you do it? You know, not to be like a weird person. You're just curious, you know, you just want to know what happened. You want to make it make sense in your head. But you don't, those aren't questions that you ask. And Stephanie does a show. She invites people on. She's like, hey, tell me about the worst day of your life and tell me exactly in exact detail of, you know, your parents' last day on earth and stuff. And, yeah, it's just, I think it's therapeutic because the people that do the show seem to really like it. Like, nobody really asks them those kind of questions. And really, I don't think really a podcast is a perfect setting for it because you know what's coming. If somebody just walked up to you at work one day and started asking you personal questions about your father's death, you'd probably be like, who are you? Like,
Yeah, I don't know that I had ever talked about any of it, especially not like, definitely not to that extent, but you know, it's just always, oh, how did, you know, what happened to him? And you just give like a very brief overview, like, well, he had a brain bleed, and that's it. And that's all you say about it. But that's like, I don't think anybody really gets into like the details of any of it because you don't, like, you know, like you said, you don't want to ask because you don't want to seem like an asshole. But at the same time, like, you don't really want to talk about it either. Like, even if you're in a space where you're adapted to it enough, it's not something that you want to answer over and over and over again.
yeah.
Like, if somebody were to ask me now, I would be like, go listen to that. Like, that's all I'm going to tell you. Like,
Yeah, I think it's going to be a popular podcast once it gets found by the right audience because it's a big niche thing. There's there's a club called the Dead Parents Club out there. It's a, you know, like, it's one of those things that eventually everybody is going to be a contestant on her show, you know, eventually.
Yeah.
It's just the way of life. And, you know, she lost both of her parents by the time she was 30. Her dad died in the basement. Her mom came and got her and said, I think your dad is dead. I need you to check. She went downstairs at like 13 years old and felt her dad, and he was cold. And she's like, yep, he's dead. I mean, then she had to deal with that. And then when we were married, her mom, she was 30 and her mom just was fine. She introduced me to her mom. We told her we were having a kid. Everybody was happy. And then the doctor's like, oh yeah, you're going to die in like a year and it's going to suck, you know? And and she's never had therapy or anything like that. So like, it's kind of therapeutic to her too. Cause one thing that I'm a big fan of is like exposure therapy. Whenever I'm scared of something, I find myself reading about it as much as possible to sort of scare myself into not being scared anymore. You know, like you just expose yourself to it, you know, like just
rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. Just when I was freaking out about like diseases and stuff, and like I would see something on TV that somebody talked about a casket or something. And like with my mental illness, I would just be like, I thought it was like a sign from like, it wasn't even God. It was just like a sign from the universe. Like, you just saw that casket on TV because you're going to be in one in a week. And I would just be sucked into that and just wrapped into it and stuff, you know? And I don't know. It's crazy. But speaking of which, we can go into our next topic. We're almost done here. A podcast I started and I'm really proud of called Something's Wrong. And it's basically just a mental health podcast where I was talking to people who either suffered from mental health or were experts in the mental health field. And we just talked about mental health because I feel like it's important to talk about. I feel like I'm one of those people, and anybody here can vouch for me, that I'm one of those people that tries to diagnose anybody I care about as something. I tell them something's wrong. I really do think everybody has a little bit of mental illness. Obviously on varying degrees, everybody, you know, I think life is mental illness. I think whenever you're having bad times. I think it's just you're just not firing on all the right cylinders and stuff. So it's something that's very relatable. Everybody deals with it, and we're gonna have hosts from all the shows doing episodes on that. So we have an episode where I interviewed Janine. That was a good one. She deals with bipolar disorder, and it's a good show, and you should check it out. Like I said, we haven't had an episode on that one in a few months, but we're just sort of revamping right now, and we're getting some more hosts in on that one.
It's a really interesting show. Mental health is something that people just don't talk about enough openly. There's a huge taboo around it. You don't want people to know that you're fucked up some way, or whatever. It's a really awesome platform, just for people to get on to listen to. Even if they're afraid or scared, to talk about things that are bothering them. It's better talking about it instead of bottling it up and looking for an out instead of fixing things. So it's kind of a groundbreaking show. It's just normal people talking about crap they deal with.
It's a good listen for sure. We're gonna be out of here in just a few more minutes, everybody. 2 more shows. One, I won't talk too much about this one because it's kind of a niche show for just people. It's a show called the Elkhart Tapes, where I interview people from my hometown, and you probably won't care about it unless you're from my hometown. But it's a fun listen. A lot of crazy stories actually, so maybe you will like it. Yeah. And then finally, we're going to end on one of our favorite shows here at Back Home, the Sprout and Dusty Show. They're both musicians. They both have a pretty good name under themselves, being solo artists that tour, and they're both. They both have been in frontmen of heavy rock bands for years and years, and traveled and done all that stuff. And basically, they just interview anybody that they deem interesting once a week, and it's a hell of a show. I feel like they started. There's their sponsor. They're sponsored by Big Fish, Big or Small. We release them all, and they started. I think they're like 12, 13 shows in. Yeah. And they started pretty much. Sprout had done some radio and stuff, but it's their first podcast endeavor, and I think they're doing great. I think Easy Out's probably like Easy Out, Sprout and Dusty Show are our most fluent shows right now. Rob's up there too with his show, but those are those 3 are our most professional, polished shows that we have. So basically we did the show tonight to just let everybody know there's a lot of shit going on here at Back Home Media. We're busy throughout the week doing stuff. And I know you guys see my posts and stuff, and you're like, oh, he's always doing shit. And that's what we're doing. Basically, we're doing all these shows, and we're hoping to add more to the banner. And that's pretty much all I wanted to do tonight. Anybody have anything else they want to say here at the end?
What's everybody got coming up this week? I know we have over on Easy Out, we will have Josh Brown, who is one of the hosts of the Nakahoma Nation podcast. It's a Braves-centric, used to be more baseball. Now it's a little bit more just life in general. They do talk about baseball more than anything else. It's basically a show about 3 guys that are Braves fans, not necessarily focused on baseball. But it's a real good show, good time. Josh is a real fun guy. I went on their show not too long ago. So now he's coming on with me and Cape this week.
And your guys' show is taking off like a wildfire. If you guys are looking for something to do on a Thursday night where there's a lot of people involved, come to the show. We're on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope. And that show has easily like 150 plus comments a week usually. So there's always something going on in the chat room. There's always people arguing over players and over plays and over just anything baseball. And sometimes it has nothing to do with baseball in the chat room. It's just kind of its own living, breathing thing over there. So, but it's fun to watch. So if you just want to, if you like watching chaos, come to an Easy Out podcast show. We post all the comments on the screen and try to follow along.
This week will be the definition of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a lot of chaos happening over on the show this week, and it'll be episode 10. We have made it to episode 10.
That's awesome.
It's been a good.
I remember when this show was. This show took so long to get off the ground. It was like 2 months of talking about it, 3 months of talking about it. But I think it was right because, like, you got Cape, you know, like he wasn't even. We were gonna go with somebody else, you know. Like this, everything works the way it does for a reason, and Easy Out is a testament of that. That it just needed to find its legs.
Well,
But
and it ended up being perfect because we were, you know, it was, what are we going to talk about for a few weeks because we still had no baseball, and then it was finally all right. We're going to do an episode this week, and then boom, hey, baseball's coming back.
Yep. So we have shows all week. Check us out. We check out my personal page. That's where I share pretty much every show to my personal page, and be on the lookout. But that's all you got from us tonight.
Tell people that may be watching on other platforms where your personal page is.
Oh, Facebook. And if you don't have Facebook, we're just basically search for Back Home Media on any platform like Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, YouTube. We're pretty much everywhere. And then if Easy Out is also on all of those platforms as well. So yeah, we're everywhere. And yeah, Sarah, tell them your Patreon. If you guys want to help Sarah's podcast, you can, and her Patreon's really cool. Whatever you donate, you get something for it. So yeah, tell them about your Patreon real quick.
The address is patreon.com/easyoutpodcast. We have several different tiers. We are actually working on the first behind the scenes video that's going to come out on the Patreon. You'll get behind the scenes content. Right now there's only one patron, so we haven't done we have a tier that has monthly AMAs where we'll open up a room like this and you can ask us anything you want. We can talk about baseball. We can talk about what kind of beer we drink. We can talk about anything. So we'll be doing those when we get a few more people in, because our one patron knows us pretty well. I don't think he really cares. So that's, there's a tier that's got like a exclusive sticker that we designed for it, and another one that has a t-shirt that you can only find over there on the Patreon. But yeah, that's the basics of it. You'll get all the behind the scenes content and stuff like that. Like you get access to our after shows. You'll see, what we're doing when the show ends. It kind of, sometimes it's a fun night. Sometimes everybody's crying. It just kind of depends on what's going on. And then we have started the merch store. It's over on Shopify. The address is down there at the bottom, easy-out-podcast.myshopify.com. One of these days I'll pay the $14 and buy the Easy Out Podcast domain so we don't have to go through all that. But we have several shirts over there right now. We've got the Easy Out shirts. We have a lot of Braves shirts right now. We're working on some stuff for some other fan bases too. So that's all happening.
Awesome. All right, guys. We will see you next time. Can't get us out of here. That's how you do a radio show. Take it easy or don't take it at all. Peace.
Well, I don't think and I thought it, that's different. I said what I said and I meant it, or lamented. Words given weight without thought in a person, the way that I talk and the way that I ought to be able to pause and to say that the ball can be placed on my arms. I display for assault to disgrace in its arm. Pray for the day they could wait for the calm. You can't control the storm, only weather it, whether it's 5 weeks and 5 days of rain sideways, or scorched earth, search for death, or water left with all the thorns, with the petals gone, settle on the breath of autumn. If the crown fits, wear it, the crown fits. If the crown fits, wear it. If the crown fits,